It's Christmas morning, 1995. The monitors beep softly in the Beverly Hills bedroom. The curtains are drawn. The room smells of medicine and regret. Dean Martin lies in his bed, his breathing shallow, his eyes closed. The doctors have stopped pretending. Outside, carolers are singing. Children are opening presents. The world is celebrating. But inside this room, a man is dying. And here's what nobody knows. This isn't just any day. This is December 25th. The same day, 29 years earlier, when Dean Martin lost the only woman who ever truly knew him, his mother, Angela. Mama always said, Dino, make them laugh, even when you're crying. Dean had followed that advice for 60 years, but on this day, there would be no more laughing, only silence, only snow, only the ghost of a mother waiting for her son. What the world didn't know, what even his closest friends didn't understand, was that Dean Martin had been dying for 29 years, ever since Christmas Day 1966, ever since he lost her. And now, on the anniversary of her death, Dean was finally going home. To understand what Dean Martin lost that Christmas, you have to understand who Angela Crocetti really was. Angela Barra was born on December 18, 1987 in Fernwood, Ohio, daughter of Italian immigrants who crossed an ocean with nothing but hope. In 1914, she married Gaetano Alfonso Crocetti, a barber everyone called Guy. They settled in Steubenville, Ohio in a little house on South 6th Street, where Angela raised two sons, William and Dino. She didn't speak English, not a word. And so little Dino didn't speak English either, not until he was 5 years old when the nuns at school forced him to learn. Jean Martin, Dean's second wife, once said, Dean never talked about his feelings. He never talked about his past. But when he talked about his mother, his whole face changed. He became a little boy again. In that little house on 6th Street, Angela Crocetti had a simple rule. Dino, she would say, stirring the Sunday sauce, you can fool the whole world, but you can never fool your mama. I see you, the real you, and I love that boy, not the act. Dean carried those words with him to every stage, every casino in Las Vegas. The whole world saw Dean Martin. Only Angela saw Dino. By 1966, Angela was living in California, close to her famous son. But something was wrong. Angela was getting weaker, and Dean was about to learn that all the fame in the world couldn't save the one person who mattered most. The calls started coming in the fall of 1966. Angela wasn't eating. Angela was tired. Angela had stopped going to Mass. For a woman who had never missed a Sunday in 70 years, this was a death sentence written in silence. The smell of antiseptic, the hum of fluorescent lights, the feel of starched sheets under his fingertips. Dean sat by his mother's bedside, watching the monitors blink, watching her chest rise and fall. He came to see her every day he wasn't on set. He would sit by her bed, hold her hand, tell her about the show, the songs, the jokes. But Angela knew. She always knew. You're working too hard, Dino, she would say, her voice thin as paper. You look tired. You look sad. Who's taking care of you? Dean would smile that famous smile. You are, Mama. You always are. But Dean couldn't stay. The Dean Martin Show was in its second season. NBC needed him in Burbank 5 days a week. The contracts didn't care about sick mothers. The cameras didn't wait for grief. And so Dean would drive from the hospital to the studio, change into his tuxedo, walk onto that stage and make America laugh. He didn't cry. He didn't complain. He didn't tell anyone what was happening. That wasn't the Steubenville way. December arrived like a slow execution. The decorations went up on Sunset Boulevard. The Christmas specials were filmed. Dean sang White Christmas with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His hands trembled when he reached for his prop glass. The apple juice everyone thought was bourbon. He knew. Everyone knew. Angela wouldn't see another spring. Frank Sinatra noticed the change. One night at the Sands, Frank pulled Dean aside. Dino, you okay? He asked. You seem somewhere else. Dean took a long sip of his drink. The apple juice that everyone thought was bourbon. My mama's dying, Frank, he said quietly, and I can't do a goddamn thing about it. Frank didn't have words. He just put his hand on Dean's shoulder, and they sat there in silence. Two kings of the world, powerless against the one enemy that money couldn't buy off. On Christmas Eve, Dean finished his show early. He drove to Angela's house in the darkness, the Christmas lights of Beverly Hills blurring past his windshield. He sat by her bed until midnight, holding her hand, watching her breathe. In his pocket was a rosary, the rosary Angela had given him in 1946, the day before his first big show in New York. Keep this with you, Dino, she had said. When you're scared, hold it. And remember, your mama is always praying for you. He had carried it every day since. 20 years of prayers. 20 years of hope. When the clock struck 12, Dean leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Merry Christmas, Mama," he whispered. Angela opened her eyes, smiled, touched his face with her frail hand. "My beautiful boy," she said. "My Dino. Ti amo." Those were the last words she ever spoke. Dean drove home at 2 a.m., poured himself a real drink, not apple juice, not this time, and sat in the dark, waiting for the phone to ring. He knew it would. He just didn't know it would ring on Christmas morning. The phone rang at 6:47 a.m., December 25, 1966, Christmas Day. Dean was already awake. He had been awake all night, sitting in the dark living room, staring at nothing. His coffee had gone cold hours ago. His cigarette had burned down to a long cylinder of ash in the crystal ashtray. The Christmas tree lights blinked red and green in the corner, a mocking reminder that the world was still celebrating while his world was ending. He picked up on the first ring. He didn't say hello. He didn't need to. "Mr. Martin," the voice said. Calm, professional, the voice of someone who had made this call 1,000 times. "Your mother passed away at 6:15 this morning. She went peacefully, in her sleep. We're so sorry for your loss." Dean didn't respond. His throat had closed. His chest had tightened. He just held the phone against his ear, listening to the silence where his mother's voice used to be. 32 minutes. That's how long ago she had died. 32 minutes while he sat in this chair, not knowing. 32 minutes of being an orphan without realizing it. Outside, somewhere in Beverly Hills, a child screamed with joy, a new bicycle maybe, or a puppy. Church bells rang in the distance. The whole city was waking up to Christmas morning, to presents and laughter and family. But inside this room, there was only silence. Only the soft click of Dean hanging up the phone, only the sound of his own breathing, ragged and shallow. On his nightstand sat the rosary. Angela had given it to him in 1946, the day before his first big show in New York. He had been 29 years old then, terrified, ambitious, desperate to prove himself. She had pressed the rosary into his palm and said, "Keep this with you, Dino. When you're scared, hold it. And remember, your mama is always praying for you." The beads were smooth from decades of use, his mother's hands, then his hands. The same prayers, the same hopes, the same whispered conversations with God. 20 years of carrying it in his pocket. 20 years of reaching for it before every show. Dean reached for the rosary now, pressed it against his chest, closed his eyes, and for the first time in 40 years Dean Martin cried. Not the gentle tears of a sad movie, not the theatrical sobs of a stage performance. Real grief, raw grief, the grief of a little boy who just lost the only person who ever saw him for who he really was. His shoulders shook, his breath came in gasps. He didn't wipe his face, he just let it come, wave after wave of loss, crashing over him. In that moment something shifted. The lazy charm vanished, the crooked smile disappeared, the tuxedo confidence, the bourbon swagger, the effortless cool, all of it fell away like a mask hitting the floor, and in Dean Martin's place stood Dino Paul Crocetti, a son, an orphan, a boy from Steubenville who just wanted his mama back. Jean found him 2 hours later. The sun was up now, light streaming through the curtains, but Dean hadn't moved. He was still sitting in the dark corner, still holding the rosary, still staring at nothing. His eyes were red, his jaw was tight, his hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Dean," she said softly. "Honey." Dean looked up at her. His face was wet, his voice was barely a whisper. "She's gone," he said. The only person who knew Dino Crocetti, the only person who saw through the act. "She's gone, and now," he paused, swallowed, his fingers tightened around the rosary beads until his knuckles went white. "And now I'm just Dean Martin, forever." Jean didn't know what to say. She had never seen him like this. No one had. This wasn't the man who made America laugh. This wasn't the king of cool. This was just a son, broken, grieving, utterly alone in a house full of Christmas decorations. In Steubenville, when someone died, the whole neighborhood came together. They cooked ziti and meatballs. They brought wine and bread. They prayed the rosary together, voices rising and falling in the small living rooms of working-class homes. That was how grief was supposed to work. Shared, communal, held together by a community that understood loss. But Dean wasn't in Steubenville anymore. He was in Beverly Hills, surrounded by cameras and contracts and people who wanted Dean Martin, the entertainer, the star, the legend. Not Dino, never Dino. Only Angela had wanted Dino, and now Angela was gone. Angela Crocetti was buried in California on a cold December morning. A small service, family only. No press, no cameras, no Hollywood. Dean stood at the graveside in a black suit, the same suit he had worn when he sang for presidents and kings. But today he wasn't the king of cool. He was just a son burying his mother. His hands didn't shake. His voice didn't crack. He didn't cry. Not in front of them. He saved that for later. alone in his car, parked on a side street in Westwood, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. From that day forward, Dean Martin hated Christmas, not publicly, never publicly. He still sang the carols, he still filmed the specials, he still smiled for the cameras and raised his glass and wished America a Merry Christmas. But those who knew him, really knew him, saw the change. Every December 25th, Dean disappeared. No parties, no celebrations, no family dinners. He would sit alone in his house, holding his mother's rosary, watching old home movies from Steubenville, drinking real bourbon, not apple juice, not anymore. For one day a year, Dean Martin stopped performing, and Dino Crocetti mourned. Shirley MacLaine visited him one Christmas Eve, years later. "Dean, come to my party," she said. "You can't spend Christmas alone." Dean smiled that famous smile, but his eyes were somewhere else, somewhere far away. "I'm not alone, Shirley," he said quietly. "I'm with my mama. She died on Christmas, you know, so every Christmas I sit with her. I talk to her. I tell her about the year. It's the only day I get to be Dino again." Shirley left without another word. Some grief is too sacred to disturb. 8 months after Angela died, Gaetano Guy Crocetti followed her. August 28, 1967. In 1 year, Dean lost both parents. The kid from Steubenville was now truly alone, or so it seemed. But the truth was, Dean had been alone since Christmas morning, since the phone rang at 6:47 a.m., since he heard those words and his whole world went silent. December 25, 1995. 29 years to the day. Dean Martin died in his sleep, in his Beverly Hills home, on Christmas morning, just like his mother. The same day. The same silence. The same letting go. Some called it coincidence. Those who knew Dean called it something else. A son going home to his mama. Finally. We all have that one person. The one who sees through our masks. The one who loves us not for what we achieve, but for who we are. For Dean Martin, that person was Angela Crocetti. A woman who never learned English. A woman who never saw Hollywood. A woman who only wanted her boy to be happy. Not famous, not rich, not the king of cool, just happy. And when that person is gone, a part of us goes with them. The part that didn't have to perform. The part that could just be. Angela Crocetti lived 69 years. Dean Martin lived 78 years. He spent 29 of those years without his mother. That's 10,592 days of waking up in a world where she didn't exist. That's 10,592 mornings of reaching for the phone and remembering there was no one to call. That's 508 Sundays without her sauce on the stove. That's 29 Christmases of sitting alone in the dark, holding a rosary, talking to a ghost, and on the 10,593rd day, he finally went home. We all take our mothers for granted. We all think there will be more time, more visits, more phone calls, more Sundays. We tell ourselves we'll call tomorrow, we'll visit next weekend, we'll say the things we need to say when the moment is right, but the moment is never right, and tomorrow becomes next week, and next week becomes next month, and next month becomes a phone call at 6:47 a.m. on Christmas morning, telling you that tomorrow will never come. Dean Martin had all the money in the world, all the fame, all the applause. He could fill arenas with people who adored him. He could make millions laugh with a single raised eyebrow, but he couldn't buy one more Ti Amo Dino. He couldn't buy one more Sunday sauce. He couldn't buy one more moment in that little house on 6th Street, where his mama would look at him and see the real boy behind the act. All the gold records in the world couldn't purchase 5 more minutes at her kitchen table. We all wear masks. We all become someone else to survive. Dean Martin became the king of cool, but Angela Crocetti never wanted the king. She wanted Dino, the boy who couldn't speak English until he was 5, the boy who used to sing Italian lullabies in her kitchen. The boy who left Steubenville with nothing but a dream and a rosary. That was the boy she loved. That was the boy she lost. And that was the boy who finally came home on Christmas morning, 1995. When Dean Martin was buried, they found Angela's rosary in his pocket. He had carried it for 49 years. The beads were worn almost smooth from his hands, from his prayers, from all the times he whispered, "Mama, I miss you." 49 years, 17,885 days, and he never once forgot to carry her with him. So the next time Christmas comes, the next time you pick up the phone to call your mother, or drive to her house, or sit at her table, remember Angela Crocetti. Remember her son who never stopped missing her. Remember that fame doesn't fix grief, and money doesn't buy time, and the people who truly see us are the ones worth holding on to. Don't wait for the right moment. The right moment is now. Don't save the words for later. Later doesn't exist. Pick up the phone, get in the car, walk through that door, and say the words you've been holding back. Say them while she can still hear you. Say them while her hands can still hold yours. Say them while her eyes can still see the real you, not the mask, not the performance, not the person you pretend to be for the world. Call your mother, while you still can. Ti amo.